Most established one. Lost the first leg, second leg they cancelled. Absolute seats, mate. This is I'm doing this 8-part doco series. So we've got 8 1-hour episodes. So actually, so for one, this is our fan club, and the trophy looks like a toilet seat. So the fans just put toilet seats around their neck.
I like when people in that photo look like that smoking cigars, like front right, stick a bit of light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They were smoking a lot of bangers. I don't know if it was all tobacco. They were charged.
Football fans are not parallel there. But the series is having out like sitting around, you know.
Well, that's the thing. When you're planning a series, you've got to plan for all the scenarios, and you sort of go, yeah, it's going to be like, wow, we had a crack. Like, good on you boys. Try and grapple with sort of philosophical stuff, but we didn't think that they were going to win it, and then they fucking won it. And like the best thing about this club is, off the pitch, there's so much shit. Like they don't have a home, so they're playing at all these different grounds. Playing ground, they play the rooms are small, start footy clubs. And the coach was John Aloisi. I remember that when we walked in. He's like, I don't know somewhere, it doesn't even know. And the first thing I said to him, I go, Jesus, mate, these rooms are fucking smaller than the Southern Big clubs. He just gave me this dead stare to go, mate, I'm trying to motivate the group, and you're covered in red hot. Standing up to a shit hell it is, and it's our home game. You know? I remember one time he's doing the serious team meeting before a big game. Like, fucking phone off. Like, you know those moments where you get silent. And I just remember him coming through these tactics. Makes people moving. And you hear the ACDC, shut me! He just turns to me, oh, fuck! He goes, mate, that's a massive fine. And one of the players goes, it's a bloody good song, though. Is
that your ringtone?
Yeah.
I feel like when you turn a good song into your ringtone, you end up hating the song, especially if it's sort of laughing. It's just really.
So anyway, you see after the series for a game.
What's the football series on Netflix that follows the season? Follows
Sunday Until I Die. Everyone said to us when we started this project, they go, have you seen Sunday Until I Die? I said, no, we haven't seen it for the reason we don't follow any other series. We do our own thing.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. Sunderland is one all about how they just got shit or to go below.
Yeah, I'll get it. Well, we've got bits of that halfway through the season. We get these bits of shit. They're not going to do anything. And then they just slowly pull their way back. It's fucking incredible. It's what we created October.
I actually went to a football game a few weeks ago. We went to Man City versus Newcastle. And
he had a bigger crowd than 200 out. I said, no.
I didn't see it all. I've never been to a football game before, but I've been to quite a lot of live sporting things. The World Cup final, stuff like that. And like this was just a Sunday game. They played twice a week. And against Newcastle, the team that they were all going to beat. But the title race was still going between Man City, so like they still needed to actually win the game. But it was just another Sunday of football that happens sort of half the year. Mate, 65,000 people on 3 seats, and the atmosphere is just unbelievable. Like not away like that. Their team song, which is a bit weird, is what's the team song? Hey Jude. And their team song is Hey Jude, which is weird from the bottle. Yeah, but this is Man City. This is Man City. It's another something. Should be
saying like the na 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 na.
Yeah, just it's like 65,000 people singing Hey Jude at the start. It was like it's pretty cool. And I was quite keen to see like that. I was joking with Ken. I was like, I wish you could get one of the tracks that come out and really watch the bloody what are they called? Like the uplights. Yeah, remember like that one was I was like, one of those train stations wasn't but we got there anyway to the game and it's the away game for Newcastle. They only allocated so many seats. They only allocated 3,000 seats. And the fans actually
61,000 home seats.
Yeah.
And 3,000 away.
Yeah, so it's just a sea of blue. The sea of blue and it's just this bunch of things like Newcastle guys.
But can you, I don't know if you ever been or not.
Like, there's nothing point in it. So, thinking back into that, it's cool. Wow. When it was a thing. No, because I don't know anything else. But anyway, they put that
Put it
in
under
the
pressure.
Sorry.
Come on, you gotta pull them.
I mean, they put all the Newcastle fans in one bloody Europe stand, like it was like Europe's thing. But like, I wanted to see it if it wasn't too good. So we're standing there, and we got here for the game, so we went up to the seats, checked out the stadium, and like, and put pie in there, and I was looking at like, viewing pit, between behind the stadium, no big deal. And the first news I saw was just this dude walking with no t-shirt, in his Newcastle shirt, and no shirt, and just going, "Good city! Good city!" Just like real high end, like real, like, good, you know? Not just like, and it was like, yeah, the Germany thing was a trick.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for those guys, they get in punch out there, like that.
and then the Kiwi players in Newcastle, well, responsibility, got to see it. No. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, but they had the Champions League final yesterday, and all the Liverpool fans got tear gas in the queue waiting for tickets. And they always, whenever the news does the grabs, they always go to the oldest fan when this shit goes down, just to really pull on the mushroom. They had like the oldest figure. This is fun. It's up in here. I got fucking tear gas. It's like, yeah, what do you expect? They're going to yes, you know, we get in the stadium.
I reckon like the police of the local police of the city when they got up to change the fine with a enemy with a new people just like typically Paris would have been fine. But it's still not something, you know, something that they can't use the city bid for the change the fine coming in you know. When they're like, and if you've done the 22 change the fine, you'll be held. The police must just go,
No,
fuck. I didn't watch them before and I see like the little people get that. You know, it's like Barcelona get it, like Catalans, I mean, they're like 6 brothers and stuff like that, but it's never sort of more than that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like let's shit kick some fans on the ground, you know?
yeah, but you know,
Well, that's a good. Oh, sorry, I'm going to segue to my virus that was with me. But, oh, yeah.
just going to quickly, just one quick one about footy fans, which is when Australia qualified in 2006 with Carl. In 2002, when they played over in Uruguay, they got pounced. The local fans set off fireworks right outside the Aussie hotel all night. So none of the players got any. So then when they played him the next time to qualify over in Uruguay, they changed the hotel at the last minute, stayed on the 70th floor. So no matter how high up they could get the fireworks going, they weren't going to reach. And then they hired a private plane because they knew that the government would screw over their flights and delay them to do the leg back in Australia. They spent $500 grand to get an off jet to get back. Oh, and then when Uruguay stayed in Australia, the Aussie fans heard this story and let fireworks go and Parliament at their hotel to keep them up. They were the game.
It's pretty high level conspiracy that the government's involved in like rigging.
No, but they ended up screwing themselves over because they delayed the flight, but then they go, no, you dickheads, that's the plane with the Uruguay team on it. Like, oh, they go, no, they have that fucking private jet that's already taken off. So they fucked their own team and delayed like 3 or 4 hours because they thought it was the Aussie team. So, classic. That's why people have that. Anyway.
I don't know. And I came in, someone took a tank and sitting down on the couch, whatever, and like it was late at night, and the doorbell rang. I was like, ringing the doorbell, and then I didn't get up, just laid on the couch, and then it was like, ding, 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 like ringing. But I opened the door, and it's like, behind me, it's got these like, I couldn't even believe it if it would have been happening. Something between 2 and 50. There's always people there. Like young uni students, and they always weed and you know. And then she came, this little girl, like opened the door, and she's just like, what? Like right next to where she's standing, outside my door, and I'm part of the I was like, well, we're not a bad like if
Well, you're fine, man, Sam.
The first thing I would do if it was fire would be that grab fire extinguisher. She wasn't thinking big. So I'd grab the fire extinguisher and I was like, how big is my being? Like, because you guys are not there, so I can fucking jump into the cow hut. So I grabbed the fire extinguisher and all the shit people looking at the stairs and the little below me. And then I just standing in the door, just going like, sit on the floor, like, what's up? I'm like, he's like, oh yeah, it's a fire. And then I walked in, no joke. The whole they're all moving flat. Like, on the floor to the ceiling. Like, the building was going to move down. I was like, holy fuck, there was a big bump. I was like, why did everyone else see you? Why they're like, oh, that cyclist above us, we're going to sort this out. She ran past 2 times because she was 3 meters. I'm walking and honestly, it would have probably been like 2 meters square of a wall on height. Like, I was like, fucking buildings are good. So I just, like, yeah, you're some shit. Because I put fucking fire out. And then you have to hear a story that you saved. Saved. They couldn't put it all down because they were going to down. A lot of them threw down. And they just called them off. We gave up. They come out. Like, last year, still getting there. Like, they didn't we got there.
And his way of saying, hey, we're going to take a big one. We did, and they just like,
Yeah, you moved that. Why it's covered and Fox finish it. I thought I could clear it up. So
yeah.
Is that really just you just get over the fact that they thought it was a good idea to come after you, like the one guy that, you know, doesn't actually live in the building half the time. Like, how many times do you actually in that building? Couple, you know? Yeah. I also like, I said it advice, she's like, I was like, well, I'll use it, but it can't be difficult. Like, what do you do? They read these things so that anybody can use them when they need them. And the thing is, the instruction is in Spanish. So you're looking at like, can you translate?
I have a question for that. You know when you go on a flight and people sit in that emergency exit row, do you assess, you know, when they do that spill, you know, if there is an emergency, you just sort of look around the plane and you go, if the ship goes down, that's like, what sort of stuff's going to be made of? Because
you're being stay behind, you're being open the door and then help everybody out. You're being open the door and get, you know, you mentioned.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, you're being open the door.
There's a bit of the door, then you jump stuff, and you can go.
No. You're the extra lever, the price of extra lever, and then you're in the case of the emergency.
Yeah, that. I don't know that. I'd let the door go and I'd be like, anybody else?
Before I'm getting asked, I'm going to go over there. You're over there, open the door now, jump out.
Yeah.
Open the door, and this is why you're not allowed to enter.
80 souls went down on that flight, but really saved his life that minute.
Yeah. I've been removed from these around before, so that's when it was a broken wrist. But like, I had a car, like, but they're going to yeah. Man, speaking of saving stuff that's annoying, I'm not really thinking of that finding like where you can lose your wallet and you know. But I had to go do it when your credit card got scanned 2 days ago. Oh, really? And like, you know, just think like a credit card scans with like, you know, people that aren't technically what you go on, or it was a tech savvy, let's say, I'm not saying tech savvy, I can turn my phone, I've been using this bunch of days. But I did this brilliant scam. I almost think like these guys deserve my credit card details because they got my plastic. Like they really said like it's face. Yeah. Plant the tree.
You've been getting rid of too much plastic waste, George.
Yeah.
Please don't get rid of your carbon credits. Just like that.
I was expecting a package truck and I tracked it and I was like, oh, take customs, give it that one. And it just got customs. And then that day I got a text message from the Spanish government. The Spanish Republic are saying you've got to have it in customs, click on the thing and pay the tax. I clicked on it, it was like €2.50 if I do the tax. It was all like official, you know, Correos.com and stuff. But I just had this bad feeling. I was like, nah, that doesn't seem right. I'm just going to expect to ask for credit card details. It seemed a bit off, but anyway, I slept on it. I'll just sleep. And the next morning, I tracked the again, like package for waiting for payment. And you know, like what you know, you get a text message that day arrives. So I just paid it. And then straight away I was like, oh man, I don't know, it was a bad feeling. Like even though it was official and everything. So I think payment yeah, it was like you know, this thing's good for my shares, but now it's just if they just get me to like exactly after you're getting that details with this game
don't get on it. Don't find your account.
Don't know yet. Wait, so damages. But you know, so I'm in the bed this morning. This is outrageous, right? So I'll come back. This is all my new stuff. So you've got to know about best deal. Those just have to cam down. And I thought about like a sort of like you know, I went in this morning. And it's just these like they just lose money every month. I don't really get spent. I think just spend people just get one place, here and stuff. And also, what's the money going into? Like, what is it? And he looks like, but this government is a fraud, yeah. They can just take money out of your account. So, you know, you don't look for anything they can go. And like, also not people, I don't know, just sort of find out something. So I've just been seeing like 3 grand going on. Like,
That doesn't seem right.
It's my credit card details or something.
If it says it doesn't sell else, you'd be in the clean.
So the town down there, you want, I'm going to talk about it, but so it's a law, but they can just pay money because you think it's a law. How do they get their money? They said, yeah, they can. Look at it in Germany, they count it. Yeah. I don't see how I can walk. They have them in the money that you can pay with. Money that they want to take in. They're our relationship.
Yeah, that's it.
George, let's catch up after that.
Is that kicking off?
Sunday. After.
Yeah, that's right.
So young does name, and then
Spinning.
yeah.
You got a butter the bread of gacha for us.
Mate, I'll tell you what, I was going to take with them. And I was lucky to one of my playing this game, so the side we down early. But there was, we were there a week together, but there was only one day we really trained like hard together. I'll tell you what, the best thing that we had to do was as much as I enjoyed being with the boys, which was getting away from not being training with everything. Because I was not able to talk enough. I would be here whatever. Mate, this guy I'm unreal. You just look like you started paying like that's why I get past. Not into the wheels going. Okay, this one day, suck it up for one day and like let's make a train out of this. 3 weeks of this, switch to talkies. So
but you got a buttery's bread. Everyone knows how to give us a bit of pest. Because I mean, that's what I talk to.
yeah. So very much. I've got 10 photos. That's what we had it after a while. Out of Kira. I'll worry that sort of cover.
I'll bring a microphone pole as well. You think you want me to run?
What you're running alone.
Right.
Just enough.
Yeah. I'll get one of those breaking bands. It's really it's
Nothing wrong with the kids, it's okay.
Yeah.
Done. Oh, that's all right. Alright, yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks for sharing out, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers. That's right.
Something senior back in fancy
The clean source of energy that fuels all of our lives. The natural gas industry supports thousands of jobs across Australia. Jobs that are the lifeblood of our suburbs, regions, small business, even at Melbourne.
Charles Leclerc, who was leading this race, and has had to make a second pit stop. As Sergio Perez comes in to make a pit stop, is Max Verstappen coming in too? Yes, he is. There's signs behind Perez. Let's see what's happening at turn 1, and it's Max Verstappen ahead of Charles Leclerc. So both Red Bulls overtaking the 2 Ferraris. And the race is a sight. What a save from Carlos Sainz.
Look at this, top 4 then, almost nose to
It's Perez in the Principality. He wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
Hello and welcome to Monaco, and specifically to the Red Bull Energy Station, which is jumping in victory. It's Sergio Perez, who has won here in Monaco for the first time. Welcome to the F1 Nation podcast with me, Natalie Pinkham, Mr. Ferguson, and for 1 week only, maybe more if he does a good job today, Mr. Alan McNish.
Thank you very much. When they do a good job, you can maybe invite me back again.
Thank you so Tom, how are you?
Oh,
Exhausted?
thank goodness. The Monaco Grand Prix weekend is a deja vu. I can't remember how I made it through when it was Thursday.
You're not lonely, are you? You're in the Monaco Grand Prix, but God, nobody wants to hear that you were tired by now.
He's getting old. That's why he's tired. Funny you should say that, because it was my birthday yesterday. And it wasn't an early night.
Listen, can I just say that? When it's my birthday, I'll give you at least a 2-week run-in, because I want you to have time to buy presents. I want to really milk in. Why didn't you let us know?
What is that? 12. I don't really get that excited about my birthday.
Not well like that, but my God, they look it.
Anyway, so do you prefer the idea of having that holiday day where you can recover now you're getting to the ZWIFT? I loved it. I mean, I suppose this brings us on to its significance of the Monaco, because as we speak now on the Sunday evening of the race, there's still no new contract for the principality. I just think this whole event is utterly weird. We had a brilliant race today on my end, but just the whole vibe you get here, it's the age-old question, isn't it? What's more important? One's one, I think they're two things in the bottom, it just works. And we get to Sunday night, a little bit weary, but I've loved every minute of it. It's difficult for the teams, it's difficult for the drivers. The conditions today, you could see that it was tough out there, and the reality is everybody wants to go back. And I suppose the thing for me is that you've got a championship that's got 23 races in it. Monaco is one of them. But if you had 23 events that were all the same, they'd be pretty blue and boring. And this one is that little bit special. You saw it's absolutely jam-packed this year. All the grandstands were full, the boats were overbanked, and everybody was here because it was Monaco, and not just because it was another race.
The magic of Monaco is unparalleled. It's a unique Formula One event. It's should be on everyone's bucket list, even if you're not a Formula One fan. It's electric atmosphere, incredible parties, glamour everywhere you look. The history of the place is feel like if the hills could talk. You would just reveal something about the real DNA of motor racing.
I think that is why we saw a very emotional Sergio Perez with number 3 of his career, but I felt undoubtedly the one that means the most to him. He was really emotional on the podium, still emotional in the press conference, and an hour after he'd been on the podium. It's just special.
These tweets, an elite club, with Monaco winners, and as you say, if you ask the drivers which races they want to win, it's their home race, which actually is Monaco most now anyway, and it's the Monaco Grand Prix. You know, it's so special because it's just not easy. You've got so much to contend with. Okay, they say, well, if you put it on hold, you're going to take the checkered flag. Oh, no. So much can happen, as we saw today. I mean, today happened with everything, didn't it?
What about if you crash in qualifying just before your last coming into the tunnel at 40 and then go on and win the race? That would probably make it even more special when you come down to it. So let's take Checo's weekend in chronological order, right? I love Q3 in Monaco, Saturday afternoon. Drivers on the absolute limit on one of the most demanding racetracks in the world. As that crash, and he was so deflated, wasn't it? Yeah, he was, because obviously he thought he could do something with it on that last lap. What it did do was it basically secured Charles Leclerc's pole position. However, saying that, I don't know if anybody would have actually beaten the time that Leclerc did. It was pretty blooming awesome. But he was deflated, he came back, and he drove a really good race. He put himself into the position when Ferrari didn't get the strategy right, that he was ready to take it. But the thing for me over the weekend, he was quicker than Max Verstappen, consistently quicker than Max. And being quicker than Max any time is pretty tough. Being quicker than Max around here is very tough. And I think he put himself into a position where, in Red Bull, he's not a number 2. He's sort of coming to be like a number 1-ish. And something that's very good for them because of 2 strong guys against the fight against Ferrari.
He did have a point to prove in Barcelona. You're right. I don't think it is very good. I think it makes life a bit more complicated for Christian. I think, by the way, the only person that would have beaten Charles Leclerc's time yesterday had it not been for the Brass is Charles Leclerc, because he was on an absolute stonker of a lap. And it sounds strange saying it, given that he had a crash. Just about with Checo, all weekend he was finding his groove, he was building up rhythm here, which is so good in a track like this. And he just felt good and won the car. Apart from the crash.
But you have to be at one with the car because you want to be able to predict it. That's what he was definitely doing in the race. He was able to manage it as well. And so I think his overall race strategy, his personal race strategy was superb, especially at the end when you had Sainz on the harder tyre. He was grading his fronts and he should be coming up ahead of him, but he just managed to contain it so that he pulled them at the right time, and he didn't give Sainz any option to have a go at it. And so Sergio, he drove a fantastic race here. Like you said, it brings in 15 points from the championship match. So it certainly does give Christian Horner a bit of a positive penny. I would say it's a luxurious problem. There's a lot of teams who would like to be in that position. How difficult is it to keep your concentration? Around a normal 77 lap Monaco Grand Prix, except it wasn't 77 today, but one that lasts effectively 3 hours, so a much longer race today. It was pretty tough for those guys. I don't know because I crashed at the bombs. I never made it to the end of the 17th lap. It was tough, definitely at the beginning of the wet. And at that crossover point, when you got to the end of this dry, then you were running through. It was as if they were driving all the time in the 3 hours, obviously with the red flag and things. It was a big Schumacher's accident. Thankfully, it's okay. But there at the beginning, it was definitely very, very tricky conditions. Because the circuit's got limited. You've got a lot of downforce on the car, but it's such slow speeds. It doesn't work that well. And if you were anything but first, you were in the split. And that was where I think everybody sort of kept their nose pretty clean in general. We saw some people finishing on the way to the grid. So in that respect, it wasn't as if it was an easy one.
Yes, to hear myself say, I find tyres fascinating, but we did today's because plans were out there, and it wasn't clear to see which one was the best one to pick up at any point.
Yeah, well, you saw people running to the grid with every option possible. You saw them coming out in pit stops, not 100% sure. We weren't sure which ones they were going to take. There was different strategies. The 2 Red Bulls went on to mediums, where the 2 Ferraris went on to Scotland. So restart, where honestly I thought that was going to be a tricky thing. The fact it was a rolling restart gave them the chance to do it, because they wouldn't be as under attack as they would have been if it had been a standing
You
start.
got a specific start, didn't you?
I did, but I understood 100% why Eduardo Freitas, the race director, didn't do it, because half the grid was down, half the grid was dry. So the people on the left-hand side, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, they would have been just going backwards without any chance, and everybody on the 1, 3, 5, 7 would have just shot forward. So it'd be pretty unfair for example, the people on the left-hand side of the grid.
Now, if you could hit that announcement, then actually obviously we will leave the Red Bull Energy Station because it's 7:30. The party went on to 7:30 a.m. this part of the
We ain't leaving. This is the party from last night that's just finished. One from tonight for the victory is actually going to continue until I think next Tuesday.
So all the VIPs are now just sorry, we'll be able to grab in a minute, but just while we keep our eye on that, what did you make of the, what was it, an hour and 5 minute delays and stuff?
Not surprising considering the rain, not surprising considering the weather forecast, and not surprising considering that they didn't want to start something that was going to be rectified due to incidents. However, there was a point where I thought, we're going to go racing.
Yeah.
We have to get out there and go racing. And I think that's a very difficult thing from the Wood Museum. Having lived here, I know the weather comes from certain areas, and I know that you can reasonably predict there's going to be big downpours when it does rain. Well, I can't rain Scotland, I know about that sort of thing, but it really does rain torrentially. And there was one point when it was updriving, and then it brings up the question, why is it updrivable? These are meant to be the most difficult cars in the world.
In defence of the FIA, there had been a power outage, and they were very concerned about the reliability of the 5 red lights. And there was all that going on in the background as well. So I think Eduardo Freitas, only his second race as the race director, I think he had a lot going on.
So I've known very well because he was the race director of the World Endurance Championship. So as a driver, I've had many of the discussions, shall we say, with him. And what I found is he's very, very clear. But he certainly is, even though it's his second race, I don't think that would phase him in any way. He's got a capacity to sort of take in big pictures. He's the race director of the Long 24 years, which has got a lot of different circumstances throughout the event. But it was a very, very tricky one. And I think they got the calls right. The only thing is maybe they could have started the race a few minutes earlier.
I'm really excited now because we're joined by a lovely friend, a wonderful woman, and the mother of Max Verstappen. Hi, Sophie, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's great to see you. And this is a question that John wants to ask you because he has heard that actually you were the fastest on the Verstappen.
I used to be when I was young.
You're still young, I think.
You've got great genes. Well, everyone in your family seems to have great genes, very fast.
DNA.
Listen, when you see Max have the success that he's had, in the last year and this year, obviously, but since 2015, describe the sense of pride that you give him.
Me, for us, like, we have to sacrifice a lot as a family, and then it's obviously it's the most achievement you can get is the pride.
And he leaves Monaco as the championship leader. We feel like this championship's like so many sweeps in it already. Like it's crazy, isn't it? With stages when it looked like he was out of it, now he's come straight back in. And you would say not all together comes from his car this weekend. It's sort of out of it today.
Yeah, but exactly which part of the family does he get that from? How nervous do you get when you watch? Because that's been a race itself, are you much calmer because you know what's going on?
Because I'm always feeling like
Added luxury to your morning routine with Harry's looking at the cliche. And
then you've got a pretty dynamic duo. Certainly, you know, Max comes with very good DNA, as you said. I would say not just necessarily the natural feel and talent, but also I would say quite a spirit and determination from mum and dad. And that is certainly flowed through. You can see that his driving style as well, the whole mentality the way he goes around it. But the one thing I saw with Max today was something that wasn't necessarily attacking for the last 10 or the last overtake that we have seen before. Someone that realised, maybe I'm not quite quick enough this weekend to deliver a win and thinking long game.
Is that the world champion's mentality?
It might be the person that's just won a world championship that knows he's already got one in his pocket, so doesn't necessarily have that little thing to prove, not to everybody else, but very often to yourself. And certainly not from my point of view as a driver. It was proving it to myself as much as it was to proving it to anybody else.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I spoke to Max coming into this weekend and actually didn't feel that they were going to have the quickest car around here. And he actually said, look, this is an okay, I need to play now. I'm coming to Monaco with calm confidence that I haven't played last year. So it's interesting. Kind of mindset can help them.
So when he looked in the mirror at the end after the restart, he had his main championship contender behind him, and the person leading was obviously his teammate. So from that perspective, he was reasonably protected position, and so he was in a, I would say, he was in a good position whichever way he was because he was ahead of Carl McLaren.
Red Bull today. That double stacking was very slick.
Do you think it was a strategy masterclass, or was it a strategy lesson that maybe we need to have a little look at?
Okay,
Because that's a bit of both, I would say.
Yeah, that is an interesting point because we actually haven't spoken enough about Charles and how really he was let down by the team today. First of all, confusion. It seems to be just struggling with which those are the substitutes. It's all in the same breath. No stay out. Trying to increase his rival.
Things I've seen it quite a few times in the past, not necessarily just Ferrari, from a lot of teams as well. Indecision in wet dry races, these things. But I think you saw two sides of the Ferrari circumstance today. You saw Carlos Sainz taking a clear decision. I want to stay out and go straight to slicks.
And you think that was his decision on the day?
I think it was his statement, and they followed it up. They weren't thinking about it in advance. They would have switched them to inters, but they followed it up. Here you hear the boats making noises in the background, or celebrations or commiserations, I'm not 100% sure. But then on the other side of it, Charles was left out to dry a little bit, and ultimately there was that complete indecision. The one thing as a driver is indecision. I prefer a bad decision, but a clear one, as opposed to indecision, which...
Because it felt like it was a half-hearted decision both ways. They didn't fully commit to anything. But you know what? You fully commit, you get it wrong, you go, well, at least we gave it a try. But it's that no man's land first. We didn't do it for drivers to do.
The other thing was, it was quite clear very early on when Sergio pitted early, due to the fact that Gasly was coming through so quickly on the inters, that the writing was on the wall, if you look at it. Now, it's easy to say, well, it's the what's afterwards, but they all have to do that. They all have to replay the race and look at the key, I would say, points are that they need to notify for the future. Because I think from Charles' point of view, he lost the win today, but he also lost one in Barcelona just a week ago. So that's two victories that have slipped away, that have gone to the opposition. So it's not just necessarily Charles, it's also probably themselves in the constructor title as well.
It showed a lack of understanding as to the difference in performance between the Inter and the dry tyre, because the Inter was always going to be an undercut, whereas the dry tyre was always going to be an overcut, because the hard tyre taking a long time to work. So the fact that they pitted Charles after Checo for it to beat him, the race was gone and that thing. So yeah, you know, you can stare at a computer and you can say the computer says I've got to do this, but sometimes you've got to sit on the pit wall and just look at the situation with your own eyes, and it's close. I think in circumstances like that, you're absolutely spot on, because very often the driver's just got the feel of the car underneath him, and he understands, without necessarily having the experience of it on this circuit, because they haven't the experience of it in the circuit with the changing conditions, but they understand what it's more likely to be. The one thing the driver doesn't have is the vision over what everybody else is doing, and that's where the team need to be clear. But whichever way, I think that they kind of gave it a little bit away. At the same time, Red Bull, especially Sergio, was there to pick it up and put themselves in the right position when the opportunity arose. And that's what you have to do when you're behind, and when you're leading, you've got to protect your place. You've got to go. It's just first of all, your driver of the day. It has to be Sergio because of what he did. But I would say there's some other outstanding drives. I do think Carlos Sainz did a fantastic job. I think as well, Pierre Gasly came through. But ultimately, one driver that I thought did really, really well, but didn't actually gain anything, was Lando Norris. Because the fact that he's got top spite is not very well. Delivered it in qualifying, and I have to say, delivered it in a car that is improving, and then came from, what was it, 15 seconds behind with like 8 laps to go, and got right up in the back of George Russell. It was very impressive for me. And we need a bombshell from you now. Okay. People are forever associated with acting pretty good with that. You were their team principal, D-Boss, is that right? Formula E, yeah. They're now with probably. When are they coming to Formula 1?
Anyway, see you later.
Alan, thank you. Enjoy the party.
Forward to it.
Okay, so now what we're doing is wandering around the paddock. By the way, it's a really difficult place to get around. It's everywhere. What we found Alex Albon on our travels. How are you placed?
I was disappointed. It was the best one for me there. Tricky because we're wet and dry. A lot of different things needed in terms of putting and everything down. It makes frames and engines, everything that work they went to do, and you fixed it. Have a wonderful range, which I guess you need to find things out. I don't know if I'm the next few minutes that's place, but the race was so good. It's doubly disappointing because I thought you guys were quite confident coming into this. How do you people at the same time, but we get doing speaking. I mean, there's a difference there, but we didn't just jump in back the red flag first. In the races, are just, I mean, almost together, so yeah, it is scrappy, and I made a couple of mistakes. But there were mistakes which I didn't even think were mistakes, so I rate race and then for the first time the whole race worked, and then you can get the lookup, so it's like, yeah.
Nicky said the same. You're not, you can ramble away as you like, listen to your ramble. But Nicky said the same. He said he just went to turn in and nothing happened. He was like, he's just saying, it wasn't my mistake. The thing, strange things happened. But don't stitch it up.
It's just there. Where you go, what is Monaco like in the way? I mean, science done on the because this way, and you're going around there, obviously, they overheat. And there was one thing I saw during which is always retired. That was the sketchy thing. Because every 1,000 horsepower, you rarely go back, but we were spending it second year because you're being stressed. That's how you do it.
Yes, top clubs, back in your box.
Okay. So let's just describe the scene. So we are now walking from the energy station to the paddock. It's barge, actually.
Now, to give you how big one is some idea, the layout here, everything is such an inch of space wasted. Side Bastard Martin, then talk about George Russell and his race, and he's 18 I'm finishing. I think he's done an every race.
Security officer. I thought we were going to come here, we were going to see the same challenging. No, I think that and actually through the final sector of Barcelona, so they weren't particularly dominant, but they bounced and it was just
it's important why that it wasn't about stiffness, calm, the fact that you can feel pretty much everything. It's fabulous. Just ways to about every single time we got in. These strengths, these are the streets. And only moments ago,
yeah, that is I can't imagine this in a way, and George did do a fantastic job to bring it back. It's still the only driver on the grid that's been top 5 in every single race, and he's done a full now Form 3 in his favour in qualifying as well. He could have taken that at the start of the year, wouldn't he? After 7 races, I would have 5 champions.
7 champions.
Yeah, so he's done a great job, and I think Lewis is probably very frustrated. He came over there.
He did, and he got really summed up behind the LPCP, and I don't know if you heard my interview in the pen with Fernando Alonso, but I spoke to him, and he said, you know, what was happening? He said he was something caught in the bottom, if you will, and he's, you know, was saving tyres, and he said, you know, do you ever feel some sense of responsibility or, you know, restriction for the others? You know, do you feel like maybe you need to apologise? He went, are you kidding me? I'm preventing Lewis Hamilton getting past me. I love it.
It runs deep between those two. Right back.
I mean, he was infuriating. Lewis said to me afterwards that it didn't bother him that much, but it must have done. I mean, I don't know what that Mercedes could have done today, but it's only had a chance to show him because he was up with it. So, and indeed Ocon, and he was in contact with him as well. Which Ocon, quite a penalty for the result. Ocon found that was really unfair. He appealed it to the fixed there.
Yeah, I knew that two pieces of the road. With a musical it's just such an unusual thing for him to do. Kevin Magnussen on the opening lap was
music there is very much
really close. So 5th and 8th for Mercedes, and then we stroll a little bit further back, and we're outside Aston Martin now. They brought their updated package to speed us. It didn't work out. Both drivers looked out in Q1.
And I think what's really interesting about this new Aston Martin is that they feel there isn't so much potential in this car to develop it.
I think Spencer agreed, their technical director said it's the games. The new car is top options, especially somewhere like one of the change the steering, the low step and slow. You need more learning zones to get around it. So it's getting way more options. It's getting into Q3 for the first time to see. I think a real fillip for that team. They've had a tough time.
To our right, side, leading these beautiful skills on the grid. She is very laid back to him. And you'd have to say, I know it's weird to be frustrated with P2 here in Monaco. But that's weird if the grid wants to lose it. It is frustrating for him. And actually, he felt for an awful years impeding him in the outlap that he could take the picture.
It's all about fine margins. It was him losing 2 seconds on his outlap. That's cost him victory against Verstappen. Having to absolutely gun it, leaving the lead to keep Charlie Leclerc behind him. And he just hard tyres on, and he'd not done that. Leclerc got through. So it's all about fine margins. And it's
It's when you said that little snake all for Red Bull Ferrari, and you put in any time. Surely they can be on the other, particularly with Checo's raining the medium tyres, dropping off when you thought, any minute now, maybe if you want to.
An interesting thing that Carlos said prior to the race was that he's afraid of Champions League final on Saturday night. He was asked, are you going to go to the final if not to Paris on Saturday night? He said, I want to. Man, you're going to have that in the back race. He was completely into the final. It's just a Very good. So very confident house. Very confident. That's right. No, but let's just go back to the original Carlos Sainz outcome. Was the Chinese league why things didn't work out? Race something and you know, blame it on that. I was hoping if you wanted to go to the Champions League final, you could find a way of getting there, getting a ticket. No, I should stop worrying about just being on something. You know, it's like what is scouring online, but really hard on something. There's so many things out there. You know, to be that which credit card might be working. Let's credit card 7 to the card. So you can see the individuals. But I would follow this. Using the profile of cards should always be related to financial situations. They aren't really right to what it looks like. Sure, what these options. And also show you before you apply the time search cards. And don't worry, the cards on credit card is 100% when it's school, means they'll use the prime market is that is just like F1 points. Climbing up the prime self sitting at the bottom. So you go to creditcard.com, credit card to find the card for you. So creditcard.com.
Now, watching down to the current and say that the performance for the game is still coming out, and just totally different shapes.
Eric also boss of Rich Roll. Only a couple of months. So we go there. Looking forward to it. How to get sales.
This is exciting. This is sometimes
I mean, last time.
now I know current what reads on their reasons and what's
Without me as well. Could we say, Fernando Alonso, one reach, and yet, which make them how he would like this. Is that what you're referring to? Let me answer.
when this talk was happening.
I know, just so it's really to do this. This time is Fernando. So it's the rating. He's doing a test run in 2021 on the driving racetracks that he doesn't go to, certainly in Americas just a couple of months ago. It's managed by Huawei. It's
By the way, the betterment.
I'll be going to big sign alongside every long term 2 minutes.
You can find it somewhere else.
The team was standing outside now. So we've got Lando Norris, Alan McNish's driver of the day. I mean, Lando wasn't feeling great still.
No, he definitely wasn't fully well. He must have said
but still managed to bring it home in 6th place, having qualified in fifth. What is happening with that second seat? Just why I've linked it up, yes. Daniel Ricciardo, I had a rock-solid contract at the end of 2023.
And he does.
Yet, Zach Brown came out on the Monday speaking to Sky.
Yes, he was an any good Monday. Sky. Well, basically said that living up to expectations. Now, listen, I don't think this is anything that don't already know. I don't think this is fabulous. The issue I have with it is going to I know that Anna is still a big part of it. I know that Danny wants to go, but I think the question you can speak is Danny still deserves space. I think that is
Does he deserve his place?
okay, but then the presidency comes down to I don't think anyone does.
Zach Brown, like maybe they could try something in front of maybe to go. I don't know. But thinks he will have his reasons. He's not to.
That's where it's very sponsorship being like that you're gonna get better. It's either two working together. Ultimately,
I'm worried Daniel Saxon's reasons. And we'll end up chasing. Trying to get this. Yes, we have this. I'll be able to try and get close to as our goals in the car for next 2 days. Now, what when I went past, we discussed she came out 7 with Eric Root. He came with this great Hong Kong came to 12 after another 5 second minutes. Same thing happened to him in Imola. Although this time it cost him a point something in this one. He had a frustrating weekend actually. It's kind of struggling. Now, the only other guy we've discussed came I mean,
so it was basically a meme of him lying with gas. If you haven't seen it, don't have a look on Twitter because it's a huge amount of likes.
It said so much about his mindset and where he's at.
Joy is fixing his thing, even though it's been hinted from his mom, and he needs to genuinely believe in it, but it's good. He gets used.
Yeah, though you're not now, it's going to I like to think about my birthday after the event. Professor and I shared the same birthday name. Because we're going down another house. So I came down. Yeah, ready. Very nice. Flying out well, I can't say you said about it, but flying out responsibility over battery only 12 and Joe when you imagine 20 and time sheet.
And I'm Joe when you tennis. Korea.
Let's end the show back with Red Bull when the party's still going on. Of course it is. Let's have a quick word with the race winner.
No, you are Sophie Webb, Sergio Perez, for very good reasons. The winner, the one who can't jump at that must have been the best win of your life.
Yeah, this was a great moment. You know, to celebrate with all my team. Everyone on point. It's a mess, but it was definitely so happy to see everyone so happy.
Well, check out. Thank you, congratulations, Ramon. And if we turn 2 sets to our left, here's a Red Bull team. Christian.
I guess that was refreshing and ultimately, well, the best of your life, wasn't it?
So, I mean, fantastic, to win this race with 6. Very good check. I mean, unbelievable drive from him today. And, so pleased for him, the team. I mean, just the teamwork has been impeccable. And, first and third, it's disappointing, honestly. having to deal with the process. But hopefully, yeah, I've done.
Assuming Checo's in the clear, but Max is still under review.
It's with the stewards. I mean, for us, it's clear he doesn't cross the line. We've seen other drivers do that in the past. Into the pits, out of the pits. So really close consensus about.
And have you seen all the different angles?
We've seen as many as there is available. I think he's on the line. He's absolutely on the line. Yeah, I think that's clear to us, and that's okay.
Let's focus on the positives though, because as you say, incredible teamwork today. That double stack, that was just so split.
Credit to the guys in the victory today, turning that around. One check of the race, got Max on the podium, and we got the fourth one. Getting that crossover from the west into the slicks. You need to read the race, get it spot on, and we did that. And Checo really made it work with him. So we benefited from his misfortune.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about that whole process? Because it seems like you and Ferrari were in 2 different races today.
They were in a very comfortable position. They got chances to lead, and they had a very good car here. So they needed to react to what we were doing. And, they seemed to miss the window.